So, personal and party ambitions. So, ambitions are goals that your characters are trying to accomplish. Now, for all of you guys, just as a scope of this adventure, this little adventure you're doing is that all of you have been hired by a merchant named Ruther Rutger, he's from one of the noble houses of Ubersreich, even though the nobles there, things have been getting a little crazy in Ubersreich lately, because Karl Franz very recently seized control of the city of Ubersreich from the merchant family that's been controlling it for the last few decades. So things are a little wild right there right now, because it's not really sure who's in control. The merchants are kind of taking over. But in any event, it's a good place to go to get on your feet, seek adventure, and try to earn cash or further your own ambitions. So all of you guys have been basically hired to help transport some cargo on this rickety little boat. And your goal is to get this boat to the camp that Rutger is building he's building a mill that is going to have this like big water wheel to build that will, build energy for it. So they're building this really nice mill on this river that you guys are on. And the supplies they need for it are on the boat, and y'all have basically been hired to just help protect it / help out on the boat with what skills you have, and just generally be helpful to get the supplies from point A to point B and make sure that Rutger is safe. And the crew for this boat is a bunch of Strigani, which Strigani are basically the Warhammer World's version of gypsies. They're fairly poor nomadic folk that are not super well trusted by most folk. They tend to be looked down on as thieves because they don't have like a stationary place of living. They just wander to wherever the next goal is.
You most certainly can't trust a gypsy.
So, for your personal ambitions, short-term ambitions are something that theoretically should be accomplished within a few hours of gameplay. So a good short-term ambition, if you're on this boat, might be getting to the... maybe you're like, okay, I want to kill some sort of creature. Or maybe I want to... It should be something that kind of fits within your character's... your motivation, which all of you have a motivation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
To ride a boat.
No, I don't.
Okay, so for those that don't have a motivation, now is the time you need to decide on one. Which a motivation is a phrase or a single word that determines what drives your character. What is their what motivates them to get up in the morning and continue living and pushing forward. Maybe they want to be a great artist. Maybe they just want to make money.
You
Want to tame the greatest beast in the land.
Maybe
motivations or personal goals and stuff supposed to be like nobody else is supposed to know, right?
Yes. So motivation can be whatever you want, and that doesn't have to be hidden. Your personal goals, your personal ambitions, do not share those with other players. I'll check them all to make sure they're appropriate. You want them to be fairly on point, but vague enough that you can accomplish them without having to do something super specific. For instance, I have a character in a campaign that's an artist who is an engraver. And so for his short-term ambition, I said, okay, for his short-term ambition, I want him to engrave a weapon or a piece of armor. So pretty easy to do. It could just be a dagger, but it will still take me a little bit of time. And then for the long-term ambition, I said, I want to engrave something that's going to become a magic item. A long-term ambition is something that should take a while to accomplish. Like, it should be a fairly difficult goal. So, like, a good short-term ambition, if you just want an easy one, right now, would be get to Ubersreich. Like, that could be a good short-term ambition, because it'll take maybe a few sessions tops. But it can be anything so long as it kind of fits what your character... It's better to have it fit your motivation. So if your motivation is like fame and fortune, maybe you want to have an ambition that relates to making you a little more famous or earning a certain amount of money or getting a job. If your motivation is reckless adventure, then maybe your personal ambition would be something like slay a monster or save someone. Something that fits within your motivation, essentially.
Does that work? What I sent you, Sotek?
Yeah, that could be a good one. Is finding something finding one of those things you're referencing to, like finding which one you're attached to. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I filled mine too. If you want to take a look and tell me if that's
Yeah.
a problem.
Mine Showfield.
I just updated mine as well.
I'll just go down the line here.
I just added one clause.
We're updating our
Because I'm
personal
gonna-
long
I'm
or
gonna
short
show
term.
you mine.
So these are your personal short and long term, and you should also
Okay.
pick a motivation.
And you're saying that the short term is of course like, okay, this is more like you said, get to Uber's right, and the long term should be geared more towards the overall growth of the character himself.
Yes, it should be something that's difficult to achieve that would be meaningful to your character.
That's good.
Yeah.
Anna, those are a little too vague. Or the long term one's a little vague.
Oh yay.
The short term one should probably be a tiny bit more difficult to achieve than that. I would make the long term one a little easier.
What about mine, Sotek?
Yeah, yours are fine.
What about me, my lord?
Bottlefoot.
Fuck. Damn
Say
it,
my name with
Bobblefoot.
with such disdain.
Yeah, Italian, that's fine. I would change the second one to a specific number. So
Okay.
like so if you're
Brass, bronze, silver, gold.
it goes brass, silver, gold.
Ah.
So like getting to silver could be a good one.
Got it. Yeah, we put reach silver 1. Oh, we said silver 1's the highest of silver, right?
No,
Or is it
silver
the
one's the lowest.
Okay, cool. Got it.
And let me look at Pwn here. Alright, yeah, and Pwn, you just need a personal long term.
Done.
And then, as a party, now that y'all have officially gathered, you need to decide a party short-term ambition and a party long-term ambition. So this is something the 5 of you decide together.
I suggest money.
Money.
Our short term should be to survive.
So like Anna's recommendation is actually not that bad. Your short-term ambition could be get paid as a group for the job you're currently performing. That's a very good, basic, straightforward one.
I shall add ladies of questionable reputation to that money.
I like it.
I like it.
Yeah, I agree.
Money's fine. Dwarves
Alright.
love gold.
And then
Good.
for
Good,
long-term
that's
ambition,
Let's go.
long-term ambition is literally something y'all just gotta pick something that would be difficult to achieve, but
We should
sounds
all survive
awesome to
with
all
our
of you.
current characters.
Survive.
Survive.
Evidently, it's quite hard to do.
It has to be something that's achievable. Surviving.
Oh!
Surviving.
Recognition by the faction leaders.
Do what?
Like
Faction recognition.
From the guilds.
I want to change my avatar. How do I do this? I need to go back.
I'm fine with just money.
I
You-
don't know
you
how to change
open-
my avatar.
Open your character sheet, go to edit, and your avatar's
But
on
I
the
did
left.
it and it doesn't show up.
Did you save it?
Yes.
Well, this is for your character. So when you type in chat, since you're
Okay, but I'm talking about those in the left bottom.
You have to back out of the game.
I turned those off. If you want to change that, you have to back out of the game and you have to go to your account
I
on
just did it.
Roll20.
Oh.
You should do it for next time.
But I changed y'all's avatar size to names only, so they're not going to show up on mine.
Okay.
I still want to change.
All right, I got to look up something for Pwn real quick while y'all figure out all your little stuff.
How many spells do I get to hit?
Yeah, that's what I'm checking right now.
Ryan's motivation is to eat that shake of ham in his hand.
This is mine.
That's your long-term goal, is to finish that hawk of ham. That's
What
the-
points to join? I
You
will
learn
take
number of
my
parties
team
before
meet
you
talk
learn
out.
your willpower bonus.
Here, let me look at your character sheet, Pwn. All right, you do have petty magic. Okay, so Pwn, whatever your willpower bonus is, which for you is a 4, you will know 4 petty magic spells. So you will go to the magic section of the big book, which is page.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. So just look through them, read what they do, find 4 that you like, and on your character sheet, where it says spells and prayers, that's where you will put it. All right. So I think we are pretty much ready to get things off the ground here. Does anybody have any last minute questions before we start diving in?
I'm ready.
I'm so ready.
Do it.
Gojira, tame us a horse. Quickly.
Yes, I will find
No,
us a
but-
steed. A
Let us
steed to
apart
ride.
so the dwarf can pull it.
Can I ride a pig?
Theoretically.
Oh, yes.
All right.
That's my goal.
Shouldn't we know each other's backgrounds a little bit?
Well,
So you
that's
can-
actually what we're going to do right now. So, we're going to go down the line, and we're just going to go in alphabetical order to make it easy. We're going to go down the line, and everyone is going to just briefly give a description of their character as far as what you look like appearance-wise, what your name is, what your race is, and you don't have to say what your career is if you don't want, or your status. I'll take care of those little niggling details. But we're just going to go down the line, so we'll start with Goji.
Solid. So wait, are we just giving a summary of our character? or what?
Yep, just a summary of your character. You are describing it because I'm not doing it for you.
Oh yes. I'm a human man, male,
Great.
I
a
don't know.
cisgender white man. And basically, I
Oh, hold on a second.
I tame horses. I'm a coachman, so I'm very proficient in riding and driving, beast, vehicles and such.
As a
No.
quick aside, for anyone, because I'm recording this, for anyone watching, our cast for today is we have Gojira the human, Lady Turin the wood elf, Professor Pwn the high elf, ItalianSparticus the halfling, and Turin the dwarf. But you'll learn their names and you can see them over here. All right, sorry, keep going.
And I'm good at ranged combat as well, mostly. I'm really good at. I have a lot of traits that just affinity for beasts. The animals love me. That's all it is. And my name is Meter Salon, the horse whisperer.
Oh my god.
That's great. I love it.
Anna, you're up next.
Oh, okay. So my name is Susan, and I'm a wood elf. Who the fuck is laughing?
You work in HR. My name's Susan.
Well, soon. But no, I'm a fortune teller. And wait, I need to see what I'm good. I'm good in gossiping, and haggling, and charming. And thanks to that, I charmed the dwarf of our company, and we have been married for 100 years.
Just like real life.
And what else? I can entertain a lot, and I'm very intuitive too. So basically, I'm pretty useless. That's it. Oh, and do I have to describe my appearance too?
If you don't mind.
Okay. Well, I'm fat and short, and with white hair and pointy ears,
You're
and
fat, short, what else?
yeah.
We're not going for accuracy, we're just
You
going
have
for
to be
fun.
So cis? Do you have to be so? Christ, I live in California, okay?
The Californian widow.
Mhm. And what else would I say? I have antlers, and that's about it.
Nice.
Second one.
Who's next? Professor Pwn.
My name is. I'm gonna look at it again.
You don't know your name.
Andy Smith.
John.
My name is Orlarvis Dabrulin.
Wait, what?
I'm not gonna repeat myself.
Secondary.
Oralvis Dabrulin.
There you go.
All right. I'm a wizard. A wizard apprentice. My master, or my former master, was onto the ways of forbidden knowledge and thought that the best way to kill people, or shouldn't limit yourself to just what people find to be more acceptable. And because of his ways of thinking, he was banished. So we were. That's why we're over here, or we were over here in the old world.
We out
Or
here.
is this the new world? Which one's the one with the empire?
The old world.
The old world. And he was killed by the forbidden knowledge. He turned into a chaos spawn. He summoned a demon, and it killed him. So I'm gonna use that knowledge to kill the demons.
That sounds very traumatic.
That sounds traumatic
it
and
is.
both counterintuitive, using the knowledge that killed your master to kill.
It's the only thing that can be done.
It's the other way.
I'm still deciding on one more spell.
Okay, yeah, take your time. Italian.
You
That's
see before you a slightly higher than average halfling standing a staggering 3 foot 8 inches with ginger hair and light grey eyes. He is a little bit younger for his sort at a ripe age of 41, but the son of Horatio Bottlefoot, Walter grew up in the halfling quarter of Hafenstadt, deep in the imperial capital of
Ryan, did you
Outdoor.
read the book?
You can't talk about Walter Bottlefoot without bringing his father up in the same sentence. Horatio grew up in the Moot, a proper halfling that moved to Altdorf to pursue fame and fortune. Horatio's pastoral upbringing belied the life of intrigue and deceit that he fell into once moving into Altdorf. Over his long halfling life, Horatio rose to the head of a prominent thieving, fencing, and prowling syndicate of fellow halflings and humans. Walter was brought up with the roughest of roughest, but was coddled by his father's status. Always seeking his father's approval, Walter has put himself in a number of precarious positions, requiring more bribes and promises to keep the young Bottlefoot in one piece.
The Bottlefoot.
To help keep the child out of trouble and also toughen him up, Horatio brokered a deal with an ogre mercenary clan, the Bottom Guts. While Walter did not stand out as an outstanding fighter, he did excel in the ways of the fine culinary arts, fitting in nicely with the voracious appetite of the gluttonous clan. Growing close to his handler of sorts, Groll Bottom Gut, the two attempted at making a cookbook, Bottom Gut and Bottlefoot, a cooking guide for travelers. This sold an incredible 2 copies, both of which by a blind person who needed the pages for stuffing of a makeshift pillow. Walter now seeks to strike out into the world and make a name for himself outside of Altdorf, a name that his father is proud of. Walter Bottlefoot now steps from his father's shadow.
I don't know.
That was great.
Turin, you're up.
You have to follow that now.
That was awesome.
You have to
It was
follow
very
that.
good.
What is
Applause.
your
Yeah.
staggered backstory?
Applause.
I just didn't think thought we were role playing, guys. I thought this was supposed to role play.
You can't hear. I can't hold down my talk button and clap at the same time. But applause.
Well,
Yes.
we are so colorful.
didn't even think of a
that we
backstory
don't
for
need
my
to make
guy
up
here.
characters.
Yeah.
Oh.
Fucking.
Unlike you, Ryan.
I muted myself and just wrote it all right now. I'm not gonna lie.
What a beast. Oh yeah, it's my turn. Okay. Yeah, my character is Grimly, the dwarf. He's a career soldier. He's quite old. I believe he's in the 200s. I think like
Speak
280.
as if it was you. We're role playing.
Yeah. Hey, let me tell the story. So
The tale of Grimly.
yeah, he's a career soldier. He was from one of the more notable holds of Karak, and yeah, he's towards the end of his career. He's considered a longbeard. He's gray. He's portly, stout, and finished his career as a soldier and began to roam the realms, where he came across a portly she-elf who was much shorter than the average elf. I think elves in Warhammer are like 6 foot, and she was like 5 feet tall.
Oh yeah, they're easily
Yeah, so-
6 foot, well over.
So
6
I
foot.
found the
6'5".
I'm 6'8". Am I tall or short?
Yeah, you're pretty tall.
You're pretty tall.
So I found a portly she-elf here, Susan,
Look down
a feral in the forest, and the romance sparked from there. But essentially, just a career soldier who got tired of guarding the keep and just wanted to go out and just destroy orcs and chaos. Very typical stuff. So yeah, so that's it. And he just came across the she-elf, and they've been adventuring ever since. And my terrible fellowship and personality skills, she makes up for that. And I'm just kind of a soldier fighter type. So it's very brusque and brutish.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I guess I forgot to tell you guys. I'm like a prowler. I'm a rogue, so I'm good at cooking and I'm good at like sneaking, and I'm very intuitive and perceptive.
Okay. And and last thing I should probably mention is I have blacksmith skills. So if anybody needs blacksmithing done, and that
You're
kind of thing.
intuitive, Ryan. I'm intuitive.
We are both intuitive, my sister.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Take that.
All right,
Let's do it.
Right,
So-
you click, I poison it.
let's begin. You are all aboard the Trundafer, a river barge hired by your employer, a merchant named Rutger Reuter. The vessel is in very poor shape. Faded paint peels from its age-worn timber. Its decks are stacked with teetering piles of wooden crates, barrels, and building supplies. The crew are Stragani, wandering folk of the old world known for their dark superstitions. They seem capable as they busy across the barge, their hooped earrings clinking in their long, dark hair as they chatter amiably. I can't talk. Speaking Reichspiel with a heavy, nasal twang. To the stern is a large cabin, its interior concealed behind a number of hanging drapes. To the prow sits an elderly woman, swathed in a black woolen shawl. She rocks herself to and fro upon a three-legged stool and mutters to herself. So, as the five of you are on the main part of the boat, the curtains are thrown back, and a man comes out with a flourish. This is Rutger Reuter. I despise this man's name. You can tell from the way he's walking on deck that he's not super familiar with being on a boat. He's a little uncomfortable, but he has a very wide smile and seems to be someone who genuinely is happy to see the lot of you. He has blonde hair with a page boy haircut that looks rather not great, but he has very friendly eyes. He's slender, handsome, and he's practical looking as far as his clothing is concerned, but it is well tailored. You can tell he's a merchant that takes care of himself. As he approaches, he says, "Good day to you. I'm Rutger Reuter. Just call me Rutger. Delighted to have you aboard. At our campsite, we have much work to do. There are certain things I would rather well-muscled and disciplined folk such as yourselves oversee. I'm not expecting any trouble, but if you could keep your eyes open and help muck in should anything come up, then I'll make sure you are well rewarded for any work you do. Now, tell me a little bit about yourselves." And he will actually turn to Walter before anyone else and say, "A halfling! Strange to see your kind so far away from the moot. What brings you out so far west, good sir?"
Well, I decided for myself that I would join this very nice vessel you have here, Mr. Reuter, and I would go about a nice journey, trying to earn my own prestige. You ever heard of me before, the Horatio Bottlefoot?
He pauses and sort of awkwardly looks to the side before saying, "Unfortunately, I can't say I have."
Well, let me tell you, sir, he is quite well known in Altdorf. There was this one time he stole 3 whole sheeps from another individual while he was talking to him. Can you believe that? 3 whole sheeps. My fault. Well, I'm on my own pursuit to kind of make a name for myself, and I figure, where better to start than Ubersreich.
He nods respectfully and says, "Ah, that's true. Perhaps we could use a individual of your talents. My family could use someone who is perhaps skilled at checking in on our rivals across town. Maybe we could have a future for you, though perhaps you are skilled in cooking as most of your kind?"
Oh, yes, sir, I'm quite skilled in cooking. Sneaking about is also another nice thing of mine, and I am, as I tap my nails, quite intuitive.
He claps his hands together and says, "Ah, well, I hope while you're here with us in camp, you won't be doing too much sneaking around. I will let you know that the funds chest does have a double lock and chains on it. Not insinuating you do anything, of course, but I will say, if those cooking skills, you could earn yourself quite a bit of coin legitimately out of that chest, if you don't mind me saying. We don't have a cook, and the dwarf who cooks for us in camp is miserable."
Does he have any rings?
No. He seems to be someone that, although he clearly comes from merchant status, he doesn't seem to have a lot of flourish, or at least if he is very, very wealthy, he doesn't flaunt it.
Okay. Well, I was gonna try and shake his hand and steal some of his rings, but I'll clasp his hand with both of mine and shake it like voraciously, giving him a really deep and hearty handshake. Well, I promise you, sir, you will not rue the day you hired me aboard ship.
Don't halflings have like huge, meaty, hairy hands? Like just
Not necessarily huge, but they are meaty.
Probably sweaty, for sure.
Oh,
They're dexterous,
absolutely.
though. They have nimble fingers.
Yeah. Dude, I'm gonna put my nibble fingers all over you, Goj.
He will nod, clearly a little bit pulsed, but move on nonetheless, and he will approach the dwarf and the elf and say, "Now this is a unusual pairing." And he looks to the elf and nods his head somewhat and say, "Seeing an elf at all in these parts is very rare. I've heard some of the elves of Lorelorn have come out towards Altdorf recently, but you're far away south, and with a dwarf, I thought your peoples hated each other."
Well, actually, let me start with saying that this bout is absolutely outrageous, and I have no idea. How dare you just keep us in such circumstances, okay? I'm cold, I'm wet, and I didn't come here to take a shower.
He will...
You have to say something? Huh? There's something to say?
He will nod very slowly and say, "Oh, that's terrible to hear. I'm sorry that the conditions of our trip were not more carefully expressed." After
Darling, you suddenly...
Is he speaking? Are you still speaking to Anna?
he's speaking to both of you.
Oh, okay, speaking to both of us. Okay. So yeah, essentially, glad to be here. Just here to protect the she-elf and be of service and protect the crew.
He will not say, "Ah, well, if nothing else, dwarves do tend to be very strong folk. I'm sure we could have great use for your strength once we reach camp. Hopefully there won't be too much combat. That doesn't usually make for a good merchant voyage. But in any event, I hope the two of
even
you..."
count for a hot bath at our destination?
He will pause for a moment and say, "Perhaps something could be achieved, but I assure you, if nothing else, when we reach Ubersreich, should you prove to be skilled in various manners, I'm sure we could work out something about proper housing for such a refined individual."
You shall see, sir. You shall see.
He will hastily move across the boat to approach the last two people he hasn't spoken to yet, and he will nod to you first, Meezer, and say, "Ah, finally, someone a little bit more relatable that I can speak with. Welcome aboard."
this This ship is abroad with quite some strange individuals, isn't it?
He will nod. He'll kind of shrug and say, they are perhaps not the most well-liked folk in this part of the Empire, but they work hard for their coin. I've had nothing but the utmost respect for them after the amount of effort and work they've put in being aboard here with us. They're good folk. I've been quite surprised, pleasantly, I must say.
Yes. Well, I'll definitely be as used to you, as we're going into a rather wildlife, surrounding the camp. I'm assuming. And
He will nod somewhat.
I've always been more fond of the beasts than man. I have this pony named Blueberry back home. Oh, that pony. And I stroke my chin and I look up.
He'll give you a somewhat curious look, but he will kind of pat your shoulder lightly and lower his voice and say, best not use the beast word around our friends here. They tend to be a little jumpy at certain phrases that might indicate something unpleasant. So I tend to find that horse or animal is just a safer phrase while we're on board.
Oh yes, quite. As he walks away, he's like, beast.
He'll look somewhat distressed that it seems that the common man does not seem to be among your party, before finally turning his attention to the high elf on board and looking up at you, Ulrivus. He nods and says, Magister, I believe I hear that you're magically inclined, and he says the last part quiet so the Stragani don't hear.
Indeed, human. Is there something that you need from me?
He his eyebrows shoot up. He says, well, certainly not at the moment, good sir, but I would love to perhaps speak to you once we arrive at camp about a future enterprises, perhaps. I'm always looking to have expanding work, shall we say, and I think magic could be quite the benefit. I know not everyone in the Empire is the most welcoming when it comes to elder folks such as the elves, and especially not wizards, but I'll have you know that the Rutger family is more than happy to entertain future business prospects that might be a little unusual for some folk.
Do I notice that he's a high elf?
Pwn?
Like, can I
oh
see
yeah,
him?
yeah, it's painful.
Yeah, we can all see each other.
Oh, okay. In that case, I push my way, like, inadvertently past Rooter, and I immediately go up to Professor Pwn. Oh, sure. You are very dandy looking indeed. And I rub my face against, like, his robe. Or are you wearing a robe, Pwn?
I would think I'm wearing a cloak, but...
That works. Done. Rubs my face against his cloak. This is very soft, sir. Very soft. You look very well today. Thank you. You look very well today.
I immediately step back away from him and say, "Get your filthy hands off me, cretin. We're only together
You're
because..."
right, sir. You can swear to you. I'll send you over here.
Rooter will steeple his fingers together and say, charming. We're off to a wonderful start. In any event, if you all will excuse me, I just wanted to introduce myself to the new crew on board. Our captain, and he gestures up towards the upper deck, where you see a fairly well-muscled gentleman working with rather poorly secured cargo to try and help make sure that things aren't sliding off the boat. Says, that's our Captain Raiko. He leads the Stragani company here and back at the camp. Feel free to speak to him. I'm sure he'll come down shortly, but if you lot will excuse me, I have some paperwork to look into.
I would like to intercept our kind patron before he leaves and whisper into his ear, never to trust the high elves. They are a treacherous kind. And then I shall shamble back to my elf mistress.
He will nod and look somewhat confusedly at the difference between the wood elf and the high elf before kind of giving himself a half shrug, and then he will depart into his cabin. And as he does, the captain, Raiko, descends, whose name is so much easier to say. And he will look at a lot of you with a frown. Well, he's more of a barge master than a captain. And he will nod to the 5 of you and say, well, if you're interested in earning your coin now, feel free to help around the ship if you have any skills that might be of use. If not, I would kindly ask you stay out of the way.
I just exchanged glances with my dear husband and mouth the word humans.
I will approach. Is Anna's the one over here, right, in the black?
Yes.
Yeah, with the horns and the bow.
Yeah.
How do I? Oh, okay. Figuring this out. I approach the couple, not even glancing over at the dwarf. I'm looking around.
I will move in. I will move in front of him between.
I look
Honey,
at
you
her.
don't have to be so protective. I know what you think of high elves, and I kind of share your sentiments, but don't be rude. At least not yet.
I shall grumble.
What sort of defective elf being are you to be so short?
Oof. Triggered.
How dare you? And who even are you? You look like the merest barb of my husband could break you in half, so get your skinny butt out of my sight. Disgusting.
Can I hear this? Can like
Oh no, all of you can hear this just fine.
He raises it.
he just my character kind of peeks behind from these boxes.
Rolovis raises an eyebrow and says, "Your husband."
Oh, a technical question. Can you rotate your models?
Yes, if you click on your model, you will notice there's like there's a point behind your model. If you click on it, it'll allow you to rotate. Click and hold.
Okay, that's
Okay, got it. I was wondering how to do that as well. Okay, so he was basically talking shit where we left off. Got it.
Yep.
All right. You better watch your tongue, you foul elf. And I would like to make an intimidate check on him.
All right, we're getting started early. All right, so this will be what we call an opposed check because it dictates how good a character is at performing while another character is at resisting. So in this scenario, because he's trying to intimidate Turin or Grimly, you will roll a intimidation check. You'll just click on it and it'll ask you for a modifier, but in this case, because it's opposed, there is no modifier. And you didn't say anything. So as a quick aside, whenever y'all do something, if you decide to describe it and you do a good job of making it extra interesting, for instance, if you're like intimidating someone, I might ask, how do you intimidate them? And you could say, oh, I do this and I say this. And I might give you a bonus or a minus if you do a shitty job. And that will be your modifier. But in this pose check between players, it's just going to be flat. You will roll an intimidate check, and then Pwn, you will roll a cool check.
All right, where do I roll the intimidate check?
So go to your character sheet, and then you're going to scroll down till you find intimidate, and then whatever the number is to the right of it, you're going to click on it.
Okay, so 48, and I just click it?
Yep. And then I'll ask if you want a modifier, and you don't, so just leave it at 0 and hit roll.
Okay. And just hit submit?
Yep.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay, so... wow, that was actually a really close roll-off. So... And so the way this game works is whenever you roll a check, every 10% that you... So you're trying to roll below what your score is. And for every 10% difference between your skill number and whatever you rolled counts as a success level, either up or down. So for instance, Turin needed to roll a 48 to succeed, but he rolled a 23. So we would look at that and say, okay, so adding 10, 33, that's one success level. Adding another 10, 43. So Turin or Grimly got 2 success levels of success, which is great. That's a little bit better than a... and every 2 success levels tends to be like a different tier of kind of success. And then we look at over at Professor Pwn. Professor Pwn, or all of us, rolled a 44, which if we add 10 would take him up to a 54. So he succeeded, but he had 0 success levels because there's not a full 10%.
Okay.
This thing will tell you how many success levels there are, but you always want to kind of do the math in your head just to double check because it'll get it wrong.
Why does it say critical success?
So in combat, if you roll a double, there's something special that happens.
Okay.
But ignore that for regular things. So because Grimly got 2 success levels and Ulrivus only got 0 success levels, then he has successfully been intimidated.
That's right. You better back down, you filthy elf.
So
This is what happened.
Pwn, the big buff dwarf, probably could snap you in half, and you know he's probably fairly resistant to any magics you would even have defensively. So he's fairly intimidating and spooky. Not like shit your pants scary, but like this is a dark alley you probably shouldn't be at that time of night scary.
So you're nothing more than a barbarian, I see.
As you say.
I was like, ooh, a fight. Ooh.
Raiko's gonna watch the lot of you, and he goes, "Hey, this boat's already unstable enough as it is without you slackjaws making a mess of things. Either help out or sit down and shut up."
I would like to ask him how I could help.
I
shall pass the elf and shove past him.
He will look down at you, dwarf, and he says,
I can lift a lot.
he will go, "Duly noted. That's not particularly helpful at this particular time, but are you skilled at sailing? Do you know anything about working on a boat?"
I can pull ropes and hoist sails.
He raises an eyebrow and says, do you know how to sail?"
I don't have a lot of experience sailing, but any brutish tasks that require lifting, pulling, or simply carrying barrels or cargo across the hold, I'm well suited for.
All right, he'll kind of point a thumb at the side, and he'll say, "I appreciate the offer, Master Dwarf. So just keep an eye off the rails. These waters do tend to have issues with greenskin pirates. So if you see anything on the shore, feel free to let us know. But as far as sailing is concerned, the best help you could do for us is just to stay out of the way of the sailors who know what they're doing."
Olarvis steps
That
up
will do.
and says, "Of course you would know that I have some minor sailing experience. I'll be far more useful than the dwarf."
All right, he will actually raise an eyebrow at the elf and say, "You know how to sail. Do you mind pitching in?"
I suppose.
All right, all Revis roll.
Is there any advancement in the amount of gold I am to be paid?
Greedy elf.
He will nod and say, "If you wish, you can. If you wish to help us out, I'm sure that Rooter would make sure that you get compensated for your efforts once we reach camp."
I push my way between the human, the boxes, and the elf. Careful not to touch like Professor Pwn too aggressively, or like hurt him in any way, or even dirty his clothes.
My name's Olarvis.
Sorry, yeah. Oralvis here. Or like in any way, like model how he appears. I would love to volunteer to be in the mess hall, and I can cook. I can cook quite well. I can steal things, but I can also cook well better than I can steal things.
Right, Raiko will frown down at the halfling and say, "From one people to another, halfling, I would not go around advertising that you enjoy thievery. The Strigani have suffered enough from the prejudices of people who accuse us of it. Halflings suffer from a similar scenario. I would encourage you not to further that unless you want to have people just not hire you for things."
I think you misunderstood me, sir. I can steal your palate with my fine cooking. Yes, yes.
He will sigh and say, "When we get to camp, I'm sure that will be useful. But this is barge, he says with some restraint, does not have a mess hall of any sort. We should be where we're going by day's end, so I doubt we're going to need any food. But once we get to camp, you are more than happy to talk to Thulgrim.
Nonsense, tall one. And I start scrummaging around the deck looking for rats.
I actually would like to inquire if the crew needs some morale upping, because, as a matter of fact, I'm an excellent singer.
He'll look somewhat suspicious, and he goes, I'm sure we would be delighted. Before he'll turn to the high elf and say, well, quit standing around, then come up here and help the rest of us work. And he will move back up. Ulrivus, if you want to help out, roll a average sail check, which average means that you will, when it asks for a modifier, you will put in 20. So you'll just, when it asks for the modifier, you just type in 20. All right, you are actually pretty helpful. You managed, it's been a while since you've been on a boat with a sail, and from your experience sailing, calling this a barge or a boat or even a piece of wood floating on the river is rather generous. And the more you help out with the sailing, the more you begin to realize deep down that this is a horrible sailing setup, and if something goes wrong on this boat, it's going to be bad.
Who is this? What's the name of this gentleman?
This is Ryko.
Ryko. He approaches Ryko and says, "Human, you are aware of the condition of the ship, yes?"
He will look up frowning and say, "She's not pretty, and she's not the sturdiest thing to come out of the docks at Ubersreich, but it's what Reuter was willing to pay for. My wife died last year, and we've been struggling, and Reuter seems like good folk, and me and my daughters need a break, so I decided to help him out. No one else was willing to, seeing as he's trying to work off the marshes, and no good folk work off the marshes because of things." And he gets a little quiet at the mention of the marshes.
Is there
can
anything
I use
that could overhear that conversation?
Y'all
Yeah,
do
as a
not
kid-
hear this.
Okay, fuck.
He's mostly muttering this.
Anna and I were going to intuition the hell out of that.
Exactly.
While looking at him, I just say, "Should we be attacked, things could go very bad, as long as you are aware." And he, without even waiting for a reply, he turns back and goes back to...
He will actually follow up with you and sort of scratch awkwardly at his arm. And you can tell looking at these Strigani that they probably don't travel by boat all that often. And it's kind of curious to you how they probably even got this operation going off the ground in the first place. These are definitely, salt of the earth folk. They're not wealthy. They're the dregs of society. And he sort of awkwardly asks, he goes, "I don't suppose you would be willing to instruct the men on how to shore things up a little better?"
Now, would this have something to relate to with leadership?
No. So what
so
he's
he-
basically asking you is if you would be, don't change your character's size.
I can't change the size. I just tried. I cropped even more, and it still has the same issue.
Oh, well, just deal with it. What was I saying? Oh, so basically he's just asking you to put your knowledge of sailing to work and help out the men better secure the boat so that if something does happen, everything doesn't go to hell in a handbasket. You can accept or refuse.
So long as I am properly compensated, then.
He nods and goes, "I'll certainly mention it to Thorgrim. I can't promise anything. They're pretty tight with the budget. But Reuter's been good to me and my kin. He's paid us fair compensation for all our work, so I imagine he'll pay you the same."
Aravis squints at him, looks annoyed, and says, "So be it." And
All right, take
Goes-
another average sail chest. So average is 20 plus 20. Whoa.
Yes.
So now I can explain fortune point system. So you can look at that and be like, oh, that's really bad, because not only did you fail, but you rolled between a 96 and a 100, which means it's a critical fail, or the worst kind of fail possible. So if you want, you can say, oh, I'm going to re-roll that and use a fortune point, or you can just stick with it and deal with the consequences.
and I can use this once per like session or what?
Yes, fortune points recharge at the start of every session.
Okay, I'll use one.
All right, so you just re-roll it with the plus 20 bonus still. And when I tell you guys plus something, when it asks for the modifier, you just enter the number, but don't enter plus. That'll freak it out.
So a fortune point is something that would save you from death as well, correct?
No, that's a fate point. That's
Fate,
like the
okay.
big version.
Got it.
Oh, the failure.
Okay, so you barely fail, but whenever I give you guys percentage bonuses, even if you failed, it doesn't necessarily mean you actually failed. There are different things going on with it. That being said, considering the condition the boat is in and the condition that they loaded on the cargo on, you become pretty well convinced that it's impossible to make it completely secured, but you do help them do a more efficient job of making sure that things are working at least better. It's not as shoddy of a situation. You still don't consider it a great setup for all the cargo, and you're a little worried about if you run into a rock hiding beneath the river or something, but other than that, it's all right. That being said, while the High Elf is helping out across the ship, the rest of you, the boat comes to a bend in the river, and as it starts to turn, the old woman who's muttering to herself sitting on the stool, and I'll ping her so you can see her, she's right here in the center of the ship. She suddenly seems to animate, and she kind of stands up and whoops a little bit, and she's this really old little lady, and she goes, "Oh, praise them! Venerations to the ancestors, for they have delivered us from this twisted bend of the river and the beast of Orshlam. All praise, and yet no less diligent, for we stray towards other greater perils." And then she kind of starts mumbling to herself again. And the crew all kind of freeze for a second, but after she kind of stops yelling, they just sort of roll their eyes and go back to working.
Well, that sounds like I should step in action. Can I approach the woman?
You can. As you do, one of the nearest Dragani sort of gives you an annoyed look, and he says, "Oi, leave Mother Vodoma be. Don't bother her. She's just praying for you."
I just wanted to make sure she's fine. Can I perform some sort of a check?
Sure. What are you trying to do?
Perhaps charm him into thinking that I'm absolutely helpful for the old bat.
Sure. Roll a charm check.
Okay, can I get instructions again?
Yeah, so what you do is you will go into your character sheet, you will find the charm skill, and there'll be a number under total, and you just click on it.
Total 48. Click.
Yep.
Okay, modifier.
You won't modify it. You'll just roll it flat.
Okay.
Ooh, nice. All right, so he is genuine. He is very moved by your genuine concern for Mother Vodoma, she's an elder to the Stragani. They're not wanting you to leave her alone for bad reasons. They're just worried about her being too bothered, and they've kind of all heard her crazy shenanigans. So he respectfully backs off and nods his head, and he says, "Forgive my rudeness. I just forgive me. Sorry," and goes back to his work.
Oh, that's absolutely fine. So I approach that old bat.
Yep.
And I would like to try to establish some contact with her. So I ask, "Are you all right, good lady?"
Sure. Real quick, do me a little favor. In the bottom right, do you see where it says "as" under the chat box?
Yep.
Change it to your character instead of you.
Yes, Susan just did it.
Okay, great. And whenever y'all are like, I want to move to this spot, be sure to actually move your character token just so it's easier for me to keep track of what's going on.
Okay, where is that woman sitting? She's here.
She's right here in the center.
Yeah, right next to me.
All right,
Okay.
so you approach her, and she acknowledges you, but you can tell just from the way she's kind of nodding, and she kind of has this 1,000-yard stare look. She seems aware of your presence, but she seems like she's focused on other matters.
Well, I would like to take a look at her, examine her. Is she wearing any particular jewelry or symbol?
She has various trinkets around her body, and you can tell she's definitely someone who seems to have almost sort of a mystic or seer-like reputation with the Strigani. She looks like someone who is either having some kind of, like, she tends to have something along the lines of visions, or she's just having flashes of flashbacks of other parts of her life, and she seems very focused. She does have a couple of gold teeth, but that's probably the most valuable thing on her, and it's probably not genuine gold. She does have kind of an interesting necklace, and she has a little headband tied around her. She kind of looks like the typical little old lady who's a little crazy that you would expect to run into if you were wandering around the forests of Eastern Europe.
Excuse me, what the fuck was that supposed to mean?
I assume those are in
you know,
Eastern Europe.
Gypsies.
Are there not little old ladies in Eastern Europe?
They're called babushkas.
Babushka.
You know nothing. None of you.
You know nothing, so
I mean, that's probably true, but I accept that.
Anyway, I would like to. I probably won't recognize any of those symbols because I suppose I'm not from around here. But I would like to try again and ask the woman, what did you mean, good lady? What did you mean talking about a monster? Are we in danger?
She will nod somewhat. She says, Oh, yes, in the marshes. It lives in the marshes. The beast is in the marshes.
Hmm.
Can any of us hear this?
Yeah, you can hear this. She's not trying to keep it a secret.
Move over, halfling. Come join us.
Yes.
Well, I'm kinda. I would like to look back at my husband and, well, make kind of consult with him without voicing it if he thinks that she's crazy or if there is something to her.
I think that fell beasts do indeed lurk in the marshes, and I will turn my dwarf to the edge of the boat and look out into the marsh and the swampland.
Can I perform an intuition check?
And I saunter up.
Oh yeah, you should consult. You should consult Mr. What's your name again, Gojira?
Beezer Salon.
Mr. Salon about the beasts, because he has an expertise in animals.
What is human? What can he know about the true nature of nature?
Oh, you don't have to know. You just have to look them dead in the eyes, and you can see
Well,
into the soul.
Good sir, you kind of remind me of my nephew, I gotta say. Well, what do you think about what the old lady muttered? Do you think we're surely in danger?
Oh, I don't know. In a mystic place like a marsh, anything can live.
Can I perform an intuition check about what she said? If there is like something to that, and I'm gonna like
So
feel the shivers or not?
yeah, you can take an intuition check, and I will tell you what it will. Well, yes. The answer is yes.
Right?
You may take an intuition check.
God damn it.
She seems pretty off her rocker and a little crazy. Susan, you're not super convinced that she's all with it.
This all looks like just. I don't know. Honey, do you see something?
So I would like to perform. I mean, my character probably wouldn't be the best, so I'll ask some of the more perceptive characters. I would like to ask both Susan as well as Mr. Bobblefoot to look out into the swamps and see if they see anything.
Y'all aren't. So you're not at the swamps yet. You're going down the river Verfiflus, which will approach a lake known that has there's a town on it called Grosse that you're going to head towards, but you're still kind of following along this river with regular ground along it. There's a very famous marsh nearby. None of you know very much about it.
Okay, so yeah, I'll just give a cursory glance out to the swamps, or the river that we're in, not the swamps quite yet, and I don't see anything. However, I will keep my eyes peeled as we move forward for any fell monstrosities or urks that may be lurking. Urks! They took urks!
Yeah, because y'all are heading down the Verfiflus River, which will take you to a lake called the Gross, which also has a town called Gross on it.
Okay, I suggest we move forward. That would be what I say. Let us continue on our journey.
During this time, I'm going to start charming and rabble-rousing and gossiping with the crew. Kind of get on their good side.
Okay, however, before you really have the chance to do that, as Valdoma seems to be settling down, an almighty crash suddenly rings out and all of you are lurched forward horribly as something strikes the bottom of the boat.